Hello and welcome, my name is Crash and today we're going to be looking at some wonderful tools if you're into anime or manga, and that's listing websites. But the first question we should ask before we answer the one on the title is, why should I use anime listing websites? Great question. The answer is, you don't need to. Nobody's forcing you. Get off my back. But for real, while not everyone will care about listing everything or anything that they read, I still think there's something very useful about these websites. First of all, if you are reading or watching a lot of things at the same time, it's very helpful to have a place where you can put every chapter or episode that you're reading instead of having 10 different tabs open just for your reads. It can also leave a pretty nice rated list of everything you consumed, which is pretty useful for me, as whenever someone asks for a recommendation, I can just go through my list and see whatever fits and I rated high, which sometimes is better than just dropping whatever the first thing comes to your mind. Not only that, but I personally like having this list that I can consult of every manga that I've ever read with a rating that can help me remember how I felt about that particular manga when I finish reading. Of course, just a number isn't the perfect form for it, but it helps at the very least. It can also be pretty nice for interactions with other people from the community. A look at my list can help you have an idea of my taste, of what to recommend, and even bring some fun topics into discussion. Of course, you can also just do this on a notepad. But these websites not only make the experience easier and more appealing to the eye, it also comes with a lot of extra stuff. And this video is going to be a lot about that extra stuff. Because honestly, if you just want straight up list the manga and anime you consumed and not do anything else with the website, there's really nothing you can do wrong with either one. Just pick whatever looks more appealing to you. But it's on what these websites do to help the anime and manga consuming experience that there's really a discussion to be had. My MAL account has been active since 2009 and my IL account technically was made in 2014, but I've only been using it regularly since 2019. Still, I think that's enough experience to make me qualified to make this video, so let's meet our contenders. MAL, or MyAnimeList, launched on November 5th, 2004, and its age, it's both a strong and weak point. I think the most noticeable thing when entering the website is that it hasn't had any dramatic redesign since 2004. While that's not a bad thing at all for someone like me who has been using the website for the past 13 years, as it feels familiar and welcoming by this point, it's probably one of the biggest complaints it gets from brand new users. They don't have the nostalgia for it, so it's just an old interface. That isn't to say that MAL never tweaked the website. There's been some redesigns and features added and removed, especially if you go all the way back to when I started my account, but overall it's still very much the 2004 website with an extra polish. On the other hand, AniList or AL has been created in September of 2013, which makes it almost 9 years younger. Which means its layout, which to be fair also hasn't had any major redesign that I know of, is way more modern looking. Now this really depends on what kind of layout and presentation you like more, but from what I've seen, more people tend to like AniList's layout more than MAL. Personally, I have to admit that at first I didn't like it at all, but as I learned how to use it, I found myself getting quite fond of it. It's easier to find things there than on MAL, I feel. On the home page, you have access to your profile, your anime list, your manga list, the forums, and a browsing page, all clearly and easily visible on the upper part of the screen. Also, on the home screen, you're going to automatically find all the manga and anime that you're currently consuming, so that you can update them without even having to go into your list, which is pretty great. MAL, on the other hand, has a bunch of tabs, and you kind of need to look for the page you want to jump into because it has a lot of options. Now, that's also because MAL has a bunch of things that AniList doesn't, including an actual manga store, and you can also watch episodes on it. I have no idea how either experience is. They also have clubs and blogs and some partnerships and events happening that they tend to also link on those pages. It's a bit busy, but once you get where things are, it can be handy to have a lot of things right there. Though my biggest gripe is that despite all of this, you still can't directly access your lists on the front page. And I'm like 80% sure you used to be able to. Moving into the actual lists, MAL does have a bit more of an edge when it comes to customizing them. Right from the get-go, you can change your colors, your banner, what stats to appear, what lists to appear first. When you click on it, it really helps your list feel more you. If you like dabbing on CSS, you can even completely edit it to make something very cool, like the examples I'm showing you on screen right now. AniList also allows you to change the color of the letters and the banner, but that affects the entire website, not just your lists. The lists themselves have a little bit of customization, but that's more in the way of how the images are presented. But there's two things that you can do on AniList's lists that I think more than make up for MAL's visual advantage. One is that you can change the scoring style. MAL forces you to either use a 1 out of 10 skill or none at all, while AniList also has the option of 1 out of 100, 1 out of 10 with decimals, which is what I use in particular because I like having a middle ground between normal numbers so having the 0.5 works perfectly. It also has the option of 5 stars and 3 smiles. That's a lot of ranking systems that will appeal to some people more than others. Besides that, it also has an advancing scoring system that is entirely optional, and I personally don't like using it, but that allows you to set up a bunch of parameters like art style, soundtrack, characters, world, and give a specific score to each category. The other advantage is the custom lists. While both of them start essentially with the same lists, reading, watching, completed, paused, dropped, and planning, AniList allows you to add more thematic lists. Like, for example, I have a list for every Shonen Jump manga that I read. I've seen people using it to sort the manga that they are reading by ongoings, completed, slow scanlations, etc. As well as my particular favorite use of custom lists, sorting your plan by how high on your priority list it is. I don't think there's any limit to how many lists you can have, so you can just go wild. But AniList also really has a really nice tab that shows you some of your stats, and I love it a lot. It shows the stuff that appears the most on your list, the genres you read or watch the most as well as all kinds of cool stuff. Mal also has some stats, but it's very bare bones when compared to AniList. But perhaps the most important thing isn't how you list, but what you can list. Both websites feature a pretty extensive and always updating database of both anime and manga, and for the most part, the things you can find in one, you'll find on the other. This is especially true for the anime. As far as I can tell, both of them have a pretty complete database of every single anime that is available to find and watch in any way, and they update that database pretty fast and consistently. Now, it's on the manga database that made me move to AniList, and I'll explain why. A couple of years ago, Mal's system actually went down for a long period of time. This was also where a lot of people actually moved into AniList, and it got a surge in popularity. During that time, the database wasn't actually being updated, and when the servers came back, they used all their resources to update the anime database, which makes sense because that was the one that was used the most. But that came into the detriment of the manga one. There was a lot of manga that wasn't updated or added for the longest time, and since it wasn't updated, they kept getting more and more submissions, which made everything slower, and it created a massive backlog. Now, we should note that this was a couple of years ago, and they have since then added a bunch of manga moderators, which should all be better than me because they rejected me twice. And no, I am not being biased towards AniList because Mal rejected me twice, because AniList also rejected me twice. So fuck them both. Mal's database is more up to date nowadays, but AniList, as far as I can see, is still updating their database faster. And they might have the bigger database by now because me and a bunch of my friends have added a bunch of old manga to AniList database, and we haven't done that same thing to Mal, so the response speed isn't going to matter for most of you, since I don't think many of you are going to try to add incomplete information on a bunch of 60s manga. But if you are one of those that are insane like me, yeah, AniList for the win. Now, both databases use different rules for what they allow in terms of manga. At least anime, it seems both pretty much are in agreement, with the exception of that AniList doesn't have recap episodes or specials, while Mal does. AniList is more lenient to what it accepts in terms of manhwa, pretty much allowing anything that is published officially by a company, while Mal, for the most part, only accepts things that are published physically. So, for example, there's no webtoons, or any webtoon that hasn't been published physically. The rules do get more complex and specific to be talking about them here, so I would recommend you just go check them out on each website's page if you are interested. As far as actual information on each entry, both are very complete with almost all the information you need for both anime and manga. Number of episodes, chapters and volumes, all the alternative titles, characters, staff, sequels, prequels, spin-offs, adaptations, status, season, studio, genres, and of course the average score. Now, about that score, Mal does have an advantage as it has a bigger number of users, and therefore the score is pulled from bigger sample, and therefore it's more accurate to the general opinion of anime and manga. But AniList also has a big pool of users, so it's not really anything drastic. And AniList also has an average and mean score, where the average takes into account the person's overall rankings. So, for example, if you rate everything a 10 and then you rank Berserk a 10, it's not going to count as much as if you're someone who always ranks things a 1 and you end up ranking Berserk a 10. But that doesn't affect the mean score. About genres, AniList does win by a landslide because it has tags, which are searchable, and that means you can look for things like anime or manga that include swimming, ones with a female main character, ones that have pirates or cyborgs, manga that include LGBTQ themes, or on the other hand, if you don't want gore or nudity, you can also easily check the text to see if it includes it or not. It's not perfect, but if you see an anime where it should have a tag and it doesn't, you can just add it by yourself. It's pretty easy and it helps everyone. But Mal does have one thing that I love a lot as a manga fan, and it's the main reason why I haven't dropped them all completely. On the manga pages, it includes the magazine it's published in, and from there you can go to a page of pretty much every magazine that has a manga on the database, and just so much fun to go into random magazines and see what they published. Now, I've talked with some people on AniList about this feature, and they did say that they're planning on it, but they've been planning on adding it since at least 2019, so it's clearly not high on their priority list. So I don't know when they're going to add it, and until then I'll keep using Mal. I should also add that there's two websites that are also worth checking out due to their anime and manga databases. One of them is Anime Planet, which has an even bigger and more complete tag system, at least as of now, and the other is Backupdates, which is by far the most complete manga database I've used on the internet. It has a lot of manga that isn't on the other two websites, though I should specify that it is mostly manga that you can't read or find much information in English. Like there's some that you can even find pictures of the actual thing. But even on the others, it also includes different versions of specific manga like deluxe editions and things like that, and it also includes a very handy information on which section of the manga has been adapted into anime. And probably its most used feature, it tells you if the manga is being scanlated, by who, what chapters have been scanlated, and when. But Backupdates isn't very user friendly, so I would not recommend using it for listing purposes, but it does have a lot of information that I think warrants a mention, and a lot of manga users use it sporadically. Now, honestly, I think that's all the information you need to make a decision if you're interested simply on listing things. But these are not just listing websites, they are also social media platforms. So if you also want to use it to meet new people and connect with other like-minded people, what's the best way to go about it? It's to not. But let's look at how each website handles their social media aspect. Now, I just want to say that right from the get-go, AniList wins this category by a landslide. But Mal does have some features that AniList doesn't. Like, for example, the club features. There's an almost unlimited number of groups to join on MyAnimeList, and these range from clubs for your particular country, genre of anime, recommendations, games, specific age groups, etc, etc. And anyone and everyone can create and join these clubs. I haven't talked about before on this channel about the time I created the Amanon fan club on Mal, which was the first and I think still the only Amanon club there. That was way back in 2012, but that is something to have in mind because most of the clubs that I joined are incredibly old and incredibly inactive. You will still find active clubs, especially the big ones, but when it comes to more niche stuff, it does seem like they're mostly dead. Of course, that may just be because I don't join new groups and the ones that I joined are all populated by people who left Mal in 2014. But what is active, very much so, is the forums. AniList also has forums and they're quite active too, but the activity on Mal doesn't really compare. Now, some people will say that because of that, Mal tends to be very toxic. But to that I say, so does AniList. Both forums have their share of toxicity. But the cool thing that AniList does is the status. Every time you update something, it creates a status. And you can also write things like Twitter, but without the character count limit. And it also creates a status. Your list update statuses will only appear on your profile and on the feed of people that follow you. But if you have your account set to public, every status that you write will appear on a global feed that everyone can watch. It's a cool way to meet new people and to, share your video about MyAnimeList versus AniList. Let me know in the comments if you came from there. If you don't want your profile to appear on global, you can actually set it to semi-public and then it will only share it to your followers. Now, anyone can follow you unless you block them, and you can follow anyone. If you don't like this approach, Mal's friend requests may be more up your alley. I used to prefer the friend method, but since I started to make more writing articles and reviews, I do prefer the follows now. But regardless, I do think AniList at least makes the follow feel more important in the way that you actively see what your follows are up to. Whereas on Mal, I have hundreds of friends and I don't know most of them. Because they send me a request, I accept it, and then they don't leave a comment, I'll never see their profile again in my life. Nowadays, I really just accept every request because there's no reason not to. The only thing it really does is make number go up. I have a special love for AniList mostly because of this social feature, as it single-handedly basically created this channel. If it wasn't for me starting to use my profile almost like a manga blog, and people interacting with it and with me, I probably would have never taken the step to make this channel. But another thing that led to this channel is reviews. Both AniList and Mal lets you review anime and manga that you consume, as well as checking out other people's reviews and voting positively or negatively. Both of them then tend to order them by votes. Now, if you are someone who likes to read reviews, maybe Mall is your best place. Because of the longer amount of time and users, there's a lot more reviews to check out, and pretty much everything has at least one review. On the other hand, AniList has a lot less reviews, which means that a lot of things don't have any, and because there is a decent sized minimum character requirement, there's a lot of people who could write quick and small reviews that just won't. But if you like reviewing, I think AniList is the best place for that. Sure, there's a minimum character requirement, but I've written double that in review of a 7-page one-shot, so if you have something to say, it's not going to be a problem. It also has its own dedicated page, you can add images, and just overall much nicer, and it makes your review feels just a little bit more special and professional than it does on Mall. And since there's less reviews, and the more recent reviews appear on the front page, it does feel like there's a bigger chance of people actually read them. I'll say a review that gets me 40 to 50 likes on AniList will win 0 on Mall, because Mall doesn't really push any new reviews. And so if there's already 3 reviews of that particular thing you're reviewing, your review will most likely not get much attention. Other than reviews, both websites also have a section that allows you to recommend things that are similar. So if you enjoy show A, you can check out a bunch of shows that should be similar according to the community. While both features are mostly the same, I do have to admit that I prefer Mall's version, just because they allow you to explain exactly why you think they are similar, which means that you can add some left field recommendations and then explain why, which you really can't on AniList. It's also useful in case you enjoy the particular aspect of the series to find some series that are similar in that specific thing. And yeah, that's a big look into both websites. And look, I'm kind of biased towards AniList, but don't forget, I've been using MyAnimeList for over a decade, and I have a soft spot and nostalgia for it. But personally, more and more I've been preferring AniList, but that's my opinion. The idea of this video was to offer you guys a full guide on the differences of each so that you can pick whatever is best for you. And if you already use both, then let me know in the comments below which you prefer and why, if it's a reason that I mentioned on the video or if it's something that I didn't. And if you watched it till here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.